person has been detained in Tucson, Arizona in connection with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Brian Entin.
So I have some very basic information from a source, and it is that there is a person who has been detained in the Nancy Guthrie investigation that they are planning to question. They may have already started questioning. I am not being told that this person is being called a suspect or a person of interest, just that there is someone detained right now, and the location is somewhere south of Tucson, in Pima County, but south of Tucson. It may explain the activity that we saw earlier, Leland, when it comes to the SWAT trucks getting ready and leaving. And like I said, there was just a flurry of activity a couple of hours ago, and we do now have confirmed that there is someone detained, and I was told that questioning was going to begin sometime soon.
Wednesday night on St. Louis 11 will debut The Nancy Guthrie Mystery. The one-hour documentary will unravel the twists, turns, and unanswered questions surrounding the case of the missing 84-year-old, the mother of television host Savannah Guthrie. The piece will bring together key voices connected to the case, offering new insights and perspectives into the shocking, unsolved crime. News Nation senior correspondent Brian Entin joins us this morning. He has spent weeks on the scene of this crime and brings us this documentary Wednesday night. Brian, thank you for being with us this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
So you gathered together a group of some of the top criminologists to look at this case. What did you learn?
Yeah, it was really, really fascinating. You know, we've been covering the Nancy Guthrie disappearance since she vanished back on February 1st. I got there on February 2nd, and I've basically been in Tucson ever since. And it's such a mystery. I never would have thought, 3 months later now, we still wouldn't have answers about how this 84-year-old woman literally just disappeared in the middle of the night from her very, very quiet home right outside Tucson, Arizona. So in this special, we go back to the beginning. We go through all of the exclusive information that we've been able to uncover. We have sources within the investigation who speak out. And then it's really interesting. We interview some of the top criminal profilers in the world. We got 3 of them together in one room to go through all of the info that we obtained and tell us who they believe could be responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance.
And we want to play a clip from your discussion with one of those criminologists. This is Dr. Gary Brucato. Let's take a look.
Amateur hour kind of quality is interesting also and suggests to me a difference in intelligences. Some schemer behind the scenes and this character who is just sort of hired or asked to do this. I think we would all agree this is not a professional that we saw here. I also don't believe this person worked alone.
So you think there's more people involved?
I think there is a little group of people, and that's great because the more people involved, the better for getting it solved.
All right, interesting perspective there. So from all of your reporting and the sources you've developed over the last months, do investigators believe this case is going cold?
No, they're very serious when they say that they don't believe that it's a cold case. There's still thousands of leads that they're going through. There's this task force that they've set up in Tucson made up of the local sheriff's detectives and also the FBI, and all they do is work on this case full time. So I personally don't believe it's going cold just based on everything I know. But you heard the Dr. Brucato say there, one of the profilers we interviewed, that there's this belief that there could be more than one person involved. In that Ring doorbell camera, you see the one guy with the mask on. But is it possible that he had a boss? And Dr. Brucato called it almost a chef and a waiter sort of relationship where someone was in charge and that person who we saw wasn't actually the mastermind behind the whole thing. It's one of the theories that we explore in the documentary.
All right, and you can catch that documentary Wednesday night on St. Louis 11, The Nancy Guthrie Mystery. News Nation correspondent Brian Entin doing a lot of hard work on that documentary. We look forward to watching it, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hi, welcome to Crime Daily Series. Today we are talking about the story of disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. This case remains open and unsolved as of this recording. Nancy Guthrie has not been found, and no suspect has been named or charged by law enforcement. This script reflects only what has been publicly confirmed by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, and the Guthrie family. It does not speculate about the identity or guilt of any specific person, and it explicitly notes that all Guthrie family members and their spouses have been officially cleared as suspects. I believe she was abducted. Those are the words of Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, describing what happened inside a quiet home in the Catalina foothills outside Tucson, Arizona, in the early hours of February 1st, 2026. An 84-year-old woman, a working pacemaker that suddenly stopped syncing with her phone, blood on the front porch, a back door found propped open, and 10 days later, doorbell camera footage showing a masked, armed figure standing at her front door in the dark. Her name is Nancy Guthrie. Her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. As of this recording, more than 5 months have passed. Nancy Guthrie has not been found. No suspect has been publicly named. And the family that once introduced America to the day's headlines every morning is now living through an unsolved one of their own. This is the case of Nancy Guthrie. And unlike most cases we cover on this channel, this one isn't over. It's still being written, in real time, by investigators who haven't found an answer yet, and by a family who hasn't stopped looking. Before we get into it, if you're new here, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if true crime cases like this one matter to you, hit subscribe, because we cover a case every week. I want to be direct with you about something before we start. This case is still active. Nancy Guthrie may still be alive. No one has been charged with a crime, and law enforcement has publicly cleared every member of the Guthrie family, including spouses, as suspects. So this isn't going to be a video that tells you who did it, because nobody actually knows that yet. Not us, not the FBI, not the Pima County Sheriff's Department. What we can do is walk through everything that's actually been confirmed. The timeline, the evidence, the ransom notes, the doorbell footage, and where this investigation stands today. Because even without a resolution, this case raises real questions about elder safety, about how missing person cases get investigated, and about what it's like for a family to search for someone in front of the entire country. Let's get into it. Nancy Guthrie, born Nancy Long, is 84 years old. She lives in the Catalina foothills, a quiet, unincorporated community just outside Tucson, Arizona. She's the mother of 3 adult children: Annie Guthrie, a poet; Savannah Guthrie, familiar to millions as a co-anchor of NBC's Today Show; and Camron Guthrie, a retired military colonel. Those who know her describe her the same way, over and over. Sharp. Sheriff Nanos himself used that exact word publicly. Sharp as a tack, pushing back directly against any suggestion that Nancy might have simply wandered off in confusion. She has some physical limitations that come with age, and she depends on medication she needs to take every 24 hours. But mentally, by every account, she was fully present and engaged with her life and her family right up until the night she disappeared. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy visited her daughter Annie's home. Afterward, Annie and her husband, Tommaso Cioni, drove her back to her own house, dropping her off around 9:45 p.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie. The next day, she was expected to join a friend to watch an online church service. She didn't show up. Her absence was noticed quickly, in the way that only happens when someone is known to be reliable and present. Friends and family grew concerned almost immediately, because this wasn't like her. When relatives went to check on her, they found blood on her front porch. They called 911 within minutes. A note on accuracy. Early reporting on this case, including some material that circulated online, has suggested various family members were treated as suspects, detained, or investigated as persons of interest in the disappearance. As of this recording, the Pima County Sheriff's Department has publicly and officially cleared all Guthrie family members and their spouses as suspects. We're noting that clearly, up front, because it matters for how the rest of this case should be understood. Deputies arrived at Nancy Guthrie's home shortly after the 911 call. What they found was enough for Sheriff Nanos to make a statement that shifted the entire framing of the case, almost immediately. This wasn't a wandering, disoriented elderly woman. This was, in his words, a crime scene. We believe now, after we process that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. Nanos told reporters, "She did not leave on her own. We know that." The evidence that led investigators there was specific. Blood was found on the front porch, and DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Nancy. The back door of the home was found propped open. There was no definitive public confirmation of forced entry, which raised an early and still unresolved question. Had someone broken in, or had Nancy, or someone she knew, opened that door willingly? Investigators also zeroed in on a detail that gave them an unusually precise piece of the timeline. Nancy's pacemaker regularly synced with her phone over Bluetooth. The last time that sync occurred gave investigators a strong indication of roughly when she was physically moved out of range of her phone, providing a rare, almost clinical data point in a case otherwise built on physical evidence and testimony. If a detail like that pacemaker sync is the kind of thing that keeps you watching these cases, go ahead and hit like now. It genuinely helps stories like this reach more people. Back to Tucson. Search and rescue operations began almost immediately. Helicopters, infrared cameras, drones, ground teams moving through the surrounding desert terrain. The Pima County Sheriff's Department was joined quickly by the FBI, and later by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, given the property's relative proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border. Authorities specifically investigated whether Nancy might have been taken across the border into Mexico. They later confirmed publicly that they found no evidence supporting that theory. Sheriff Nanos was careful, in his early briefings, to push back directly on the idea that Nancy might have simply wandered off due to confusion or disorientation. He reiterated that she had limited mobility and needed medication on a strict daily schedule, meaning that wherever she was, time itself was working against her in a very literal medical sense. That combination, a confirmed crime scene, a missing elderly woman with urgent medical needs, and a family with a national media platform, meant this case moved from local story to national headline within days. 10 days after Nancy was reported missing, the case took its most significant turn yet. The FBI recovered footage from Nancy's doorbell camera, footage that, once released publicly, became the defining image of this entire investigation. The footage shows a masked figure at Nancy's front door, in the dark, wearing gloves and carrying a backpack. Reports also indicated the figure appeared to be armed. FBI Director Kash Patel later released still images from the footage directly to the public, describing the individual as a suspect in the case. The first time investigators had publicly acknowledged evidence pointing to a specific, if unidentified, person. The footage answered one question and immediately raised several more. It confirmed, visually, that whoever came to that door had planned to conceal their identity. The mask, the gloves, all suggest premeditation rather than a spontaneous act. But the footage itself doesn't clearly reveal age, build, or any distinguishing feature that investigators have been able to use to identify the person captured. I want to be honest with you about something here, because I think it matters more in this case than almost any other we've covered. There is no dramatic reveal coming in this section. Investigators released this footage specifically because they don't know who this is. And 5 months later, they still don't. If that unresolved feeling is landing with you the way it's landing with me, drop a comment. I read every one, and it shapes what we bring to this channel next. In the weeks that followed, investigators pursued physical evidence connected to the footage. A pair of gloves was recovered roughly 2 miles from Nancy's home. Preliminary testing pointed to DNA from an unknown male. For a period, that lead appeared to be one of the most promising threads in the entire case. It later collapsed. The sheriff's department confirmed the gloves actually belonged to a local restaurant worker and had no connection to the case at all. Testing on the gloves also came back with no match in CODIS, the national DNA database used to identify known offenders. It's a pattern that has defined much of this investigation. A lead emerges, gains public attention, and then dissolves under closer examination. That's part of what makes this case so difficult, both for investigators and for a family desperate for a breakthrough that holds up. Not long after Nancy's disappearance, a new and strange element entered the case: ransom notes. Multiple notes were received by media outlets and by the family, of undetermined origin, demanding payment in cryptocurrency. At least 2 separate deadlines were set in these notes, both of which passed without confirmed contact or resolution. The FBI's Phoenix office has since acknowledged publicly that it received several ransom notes over the course of the investigation. Some were assessed as extortion attempts without legitimacy, In other words, opportunists trying to exploit a high-profile case for financial gain. In fact, one man, Derek Colella of Los Angeles, later pleaded guilty to charges connected to sending fake harassing messages to the Guthrie family, confirming that at least part of this correspondence was fraudulent. But the FBI has also stated that other notes may potentially be legitimate and remain under active investigation as such. As of this recording, the Bureau says the case continues to be investigated as a kidnapping for ransom. One note in particular carried devastating weight. According to multiple news reports, a second ransom note sent to a Tucson television station claimed that Nancy had died shortly after her abduction. Savannah Guthrie addressed that development publicly and directly, saying she didn't have any official comment on the story and wasn't involved in her network's coverage of it, but that she couldn't pretend she wasn't affected by it. She used the moment to appeal again to the public. "This is the life that my family lives every day, and we are in agony. We cannot be at peace. Somebody knows something." This next part isn't easy to sit with, and I don't think it should be treated lightly. A family has been living for months now with the possibility that a note claiming their mother died might be true, without any way to confirm or disprove it. If you want to support finding an answer to that uncertainty, sharing accurate information about this case, rather than speculation, genuinely helps. Despite the uncertainty around which notes might be real, the family made a decision early on to respond as though every possibility deserved to be taken seriously. In a video message, Savannah Guthrie directly addressed whoever might be holding her mother. "We beg you now to return our mother to us, so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay." Later, on February 24th, Savannah announced the family was offering a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery, a figure that grew from an initial $50,000 reward jointly offered by the family and the FBI in the earliest days of the search. Around the same time, the family donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a gesture aimed at supporting other families facing similarly agonizing circumstances. What makes this case unusual, even among high-profile disappearances, is how publicly the family has had to carry their search. Savannah Guthrie is one of the most recognized faces in American television news, and that meant the family's private agony became a matter of national visibility almost immediately, whether they wanted it that way or not. In the days after her mother's disappearance, Savannah stepped away from her regular hosting duties. Her brother, Camron Guthrie, appeared in a video plea as the first ransom deadline passed, saying directly, "Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you, so we can move forward." Over the following months, the family posted a series of increasingly emotional video appeals. In one, flanked by her siblings, Savannah pleaded for her mother's safe return. In another, she thanked the public for their prayers, saying the family believed that somehow, some way, Nancy was feeling that support, even in what she called this darkest place. On Mother's Day, the first since Nancy's disappearance, Savannah shared a compilation of home videos and photographs on social media, including a clip of her mother saying, simply, "Miss you." Her caption read, "Mother, daughter, sister, Nani, we miss you with every breath. We will never stop looking for you. We will never be at peace until we find you. We need help. Someone knows something that can make the difference." In April, Savannah returned to the Today Show desk, telling co-host Hoda Kotb in her first interview since the disappearance that the family still knew almost nothing concrete. She described the ongoing strangeness of returning to daily life, hosting a morning show and later a planned game show project, while her mother remained missing. "Everything is strange right now," she said. "It's strange to get up and do the Today Show every day, but I'm determined to put one foot in front of the other." The family also made a point of returning, physically, to Nancy's home. About a month after the disappearance, Savannah was seen there for the first time since the case began, joined by her sister Annie and brother-in-law Tommaso Cioni, placing yellow flowers at a makeshift memorial that neighbors had built at the edge of the property. Savannah wrote afterward that the family felt the love and prayers of their neighbors, the Tucson community, and people around the country. If you haven't already, subscribe, because unlike most of the cases we cover, this one doesn't have an ending yet, and we'll continue following it as new developments come in. Investigations of this scale generate an enormous amount of information, and not all of it holds up. This case has had more than its share of leads that initially looked significant and ultimately went nowhere. The gloves found near Nancy's home, discussed earlier, are one example, a promising lead that turned out to belong to an unrelated local restaurant worker. In another strange turn, human bones were discovered near Nancy's home during the search effort. For a period, that discovery raised the possibility of the darkest kind of resolution to the case. A spokesperson later confirmed the remains were not criminal in nature at all. They were unrelated to Nancy and were instead identified as part of a separate prehistoric anthropological find in the area. The ransom notes, as discussed, have been a mix of confirmed fraud and unresolved possibility, with at least one person prosecuted for sending fraudulent, harassing messages, exploiting the case, while other notes remain, according to the FBI, still under active investigation as potentially legitimate. And then there's the question that has hung over the case from the beginning, and, as of this recording, remains unanswered. Who is the masked figure captured on Nancy's doorbell camera? Investigators have released the clearest images they have. The public has scrutinized every frame, and still, 5 months later, that person has not been identified. Taken together, these dead ends tell you something real about this investigation. Not that it's been mishandled, but that it's been extraordinarily difficult. A case built on a small amount of physical evidence, an unidentified figure captured on camera, and a series of notes whose authenticity remains genuinely uncertain does not lend itself to quick resolution, no matter how many resources are devoted to it. Cases like this one inevitably raise a harder question. Why does this disappearance receive FBI involvement, national media coverage, and a $1 million reward, when so many other missing person cases, involving people without a famous relative, don't receive anywhere near that level of attention? It's a fair question, and it doesn't have a comfortable answer. Every year, hundreds of thousands of missing person reports are filed in the United States. The overwhelming majority are resolved relatively quickly, but a meaningful number are not, and many of those cases, involving elderly individuals, people of color, indigenous communities, and other underrepresented groups, receive a fraction of the resources and public attention that Nancy Guthrie's case has received. That disparity doesn't take anything away from the urgency of finding Nancy. It's simply worth naming, because this case has, in its own way, put a spotlight on it. Former FBI Special Agent Harry Trombitis, discussing the case publicly, was candid about the medical reality facing investigators. Given Nancy's age, her physical condition at the time of her disappearance, and the amount of time that has now passed, he said it was difficult to remain optimistic that she is still alive, while adding that, as an investigator, you never stop working a case, and the goal remains bringing her home, alive if possible, and if not, at least returning her body to her family so they can have some form of closure. This case has also renewed attention on the vulnerability of elderly individuals more broadly, how quickly a life can be upended, how dependent many older adults are on medication schedules and routine, and how a missing person case involving someone elderly carries a ticking clock that's different from almost any other kind of disappearance. As of this recording, more than 5 months after Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her Tucson home, she has not been found. No suspect has been named. All Guthrie family members and their spouses remain officially cleared. The FBI continues to investigate the case as a kidnapping for ransom, while acknowledging that some of the ransom communications received may be fraudulent and others may be legitimate. The reward for information now stands at over $1 million combined from the family and law enforcement. The FBI's tip line remains active. Investigators continue to review evidence, including DNA recovered from the home, which as of early summer was still undergoing analysis. Savannah Guthrie has continued to balance her public role with her private search, returning to the Today Show while continuing to issue public appeals whenever new developments arise, including, as recently as July, a statement on behalf of the family marking 5 months since Nancy's disappearance. It is 5 months of agony and unending trauma for our family. There is not a moment that goes by that we aren't actively trying to find our mom. This is a case without an ending, at least not yet. And that's a genuinely uncomfortable place to leave a documentary. But it's also the honest one. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The people who love her are still looking. And somewhere, someone may know something that could change that. If you have any information related to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the FBI directly at 1-800-CALL-FBI or reach out to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Tips can be submitted anonymously. If this case affected you, share it. Accurate information travels further when more people are paying attention to the real facts rather than speculation. And if you're new here, subscribe, because we'll keep following this case as it develops. Thank you for watching, and thank you for caring about the truth in a case that still needs one.